Welcome into the Boys Collective episode number 27 right here on 105.3 The Fan. My name is Kevin Gray alongside Super Bowl winning scout and 1/4 of the G-Bag Nation, Bryan Broaddus, on this Victory Monday as the Dallas Cowboys get apropos, as this is our 27th episode, a 27-20 win over the Washington football team. Bryan, good morning. Good to see you. How are we feeling after the Cowboys beat up on the Washington football team defensively, made it a little close at the end than what we would have liked to, but ultimately walk out with a win on Sunday afternoon?
Yeah, KG, there was a time in my life where when I was in the NFL, a win was a win was a win, and you just kind of moved on to the next one. And I know we're not doing anything here for the AP poll or the UPI poll or any of that stuff. So I think, at the end of the day, you're not playing to go to the Poulan Weed Eater Bowl. You're playing to try and get to the Super Bowl. And so, the style point stuff along the way, it's difficult. And I can understand why Cowboy fans, are kind of like grinding their teeth right now and wringing their hands and wondering what's going on with this football team. I know in the post-game show last night, there was a lot of conversation about that. I know you and you had your show, you and Chris Arnold afterwards, the post-game show, and probably were dealing with a lot of the same things. So, yeah, it's a 9-4 team. It just doesn't feel like a 9-4 team right now. And I think that's what everybody's trying to kind of wrap their hands around right now.
I'm sure there are a lot of teams in the National Football League who would love to have the 9-4 problems that the Dallas Cowboys have at this point. But that just speaks to where we are in terms of the calendar in the NFL. Find a way by any means necessary to get a win, and the Cowboys, not albeit with style points, but did find a way to get a win in Washington on Sunday. You can find Bryan on Twitter at Bryan Broaddus. You can find me on Twitter at Kevin Gray Sports. Be sure to subscribe to 105 Through the Fan here on YouTube. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 105 Through the Fan, and of course, everything for all things for the fan on 105throughthefan.com. Bryan, let's jump into our game recap here. The Dallas Cowboys moved to 9-4 on the season with a 27-20 win. Now 3 games clear of the Washington football team in the NFC East with 4 games to go, up 3 games. For all intents and purposes, the NFC East, it appears to be put to bed by the Dallas Cowboys with their win on Sunday. Let's start with the defense. The defense was absolutely incredible in this football game, forcing 4 turnovers. Micah Parsons, Neville Gallimore, DeMarcus Lawrence, Randy Gregory, all getting into the act. I thought the momentum of this football game changed with Randy Gregory's tip drill athletic interception that really got the defense continuing to go forward, which led to an Amari Cooper 7-yard touchdown. Let's start with that defense, though. Dan Quinn has turned this bunch around and has made them what I think right now, Bryan, the best unit on this football team, the way that they've been able to carry on over the last several weeks now.
Yeah, they have, KG. And really what you have to give Dan credit. You have to give Joe Witt a lot of credit, AD, a defensive line coach, George Edwards, Al Harris. Those guys have been, they were having to kind of to manufacture ways to play defense this year and had to do it with a lot of different ways. Had to use linebackers as safeties as linebackers, had to use linebackers as rush players, had to use all kinds of different combinations of guys in order to get to where we are now, where you have a healthy defensive line, where you have Tank Lawrence playing, where you have Randy Gregory playing, where you have Neville Gallimore playing, where you have Tristan Hill playing. There was a lot of time where, those guys weren't available. And these coaches were able to pull things together. And you truly, it always seems like it's coach speak when a coach says we put our players in positions to make plays. This defensive staff truly does that. And I think that's one of the reasons why you've got a lot of young guys, or not young, but you got a lot of guys that are playing in spots that probably weren't going to play in spots during the season, but they've had to figure it all out. And like I say, with these guys coming back now in the mix, Dan Quinn can get even more creative with the way that he's calling his games and putting pressure on these offenses to have to play against him.
I can only imagine when it comes to Dan Quinn, a kid in a candy store, when he sees the opportunities to use Randy Gregory and DeMarcus Lawrence and Neville Gallimore and also Micah Parsons and the versatility that Parsons presents. I'm sure Dan Quinn gets to look at his game plans every week and says, hey, well, what do I get to do this week? And I think for the first time, we got to see what some of that could look like. And for this defense to have played the way that they've played over the last month, we saw what they did against the Washington football team. It feels like a tale of two seasons. The first half of the season, the offense seemed like it was the best in the NFL, carrying the way that the Cowboys are playing, and the offensive quote unquote identity, if you will, of this football team was based on what they were doing offensively. The second half of the year, this defense has been taking over and really carried this football team. And they did it again against the Washington football team led by a guy in Micah Parsons. 12 sacks on the season now. He's 2.5 shy off of the rookie record set by Javon Curse, who was an amazing football player for folks who forget how good Javon Curse was. With his 2 sacks in the game against Washington, Micah Parsons is the first Cowboys rookie to have 3 multi-sack games in his rookie season. I'm having a hard time finding words to describe this young man, because what he does week in and week out, it seems like is something better every time he steps on the football field. If you can, what words, if any, can we use to describe how good he has been in his rookie season so far?
I think the best word that can describe him is versatile. And, this is one of those things where, as you take a player and you see his capabilities and you really dig in on what he is, and, you would watch the Penn State tape, and I know there's a lot of folks out there that I interact with that are like, man, we missed this guy. We missed him. We missed and yeah, you didn't see the pass rush ability. You saw some blitz ability and things like that, but the kid didn't play last year football. I mean, the last game you saw him play was at the Cotton Bowl against Memphis, and then he was done for COVID. That was it. No more tape. So you're going back 2 years ago and watching tape, and you're going, oh, okay, well, this is what, Penn State did with him, and this is how they used him and stuff like that. But, I think that where the Cowboys really benefited is the fact that this kid is so versatile, but he was versatile throughout his life as a football player. You talk about, he goes, I was a running back. I was a defensive end. In high school, he was all these different things. And if you're Dan Quinn, you're like, damn, I wonder if we can rush him as I've seen him blitz. I wonder if we could use him as a defensive end. I wonder if we could use him as a rusher. I wonder if we can, and now you start to play to the strengths of the player, because he has a history of rushing the passer in high school. People, you can kind of say, wow, that's just so long ago, but the kid did that. He understood how to attack the pocket. Now high school level is a lot different than rushing in the NFL.
Sure. But
at least he's played the position, and then you have the desire from the player to want to do whatever he has to do. He's just not, we always say in scouting, don't be a one-trick pony. This guy's not a one-trick pony. This guy is a guy that can play multiple. Heck, KG, we saw him yesterday in coverage, 30 yards down the field, knocking down a damn ball. That's what you got to do, when you have a player that you just, you experiment with it. You say, wonder if we could do this. Wonder if we could do this. Wonder if we could do this. And I think that one thing, you could say dominant and, fierce and all these words to describe the player, finisher. But I think the one thing, the best word to describe him is versatile, because he can do everything you ask him to do. And he does it at a high level. It's not like he's just kind of a half-ass pass rusher or a half-ass linebacker. He is a really good physical linebacker. He is a really good pass rusher. The coverage stuff, does he have to work on that? Sure. But heck, we saw in the Saints game, him carry a route up the sidelines with a receiver, knock the ball up in the air, And then Kearse makes a huge interception down in the red zone. I mean, that's what you're getting from this guy. And I don't think words always do him justice. I think it's I think it's just the way that, that's mom and dad. I mean, seriously, that's just mom and dad right there. That's creation right there, and the type of player that he is.
Micah Parsons has recorded a full sack in 6 consecutive games. Parsons is one of 3 rookies in NFL history to post a full sack in 6 straight games, joining Javon Kearse, who did it in 8 games in 1999, and Mike Kroll, who did it in 6 games back in 1991. For me, Parsons is a rare combination.
Good player out of Nebraska, by the way. That Mike Kroll was a good player out of Nebraska, by the way, a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like Parsons is a rare combination of speed, power. You mentioned the word versatility.
Yeah.
The kid seems incredibly smart too. I think one of the things I've been most impressed with is there's nothing that he has not been willing to handle, and everything they've thrown at him, he's embraced it and willing to get better. And to me, that's a scary combination for a guy who's as young as he is, still getting better each and every time he gets out there. But more importantly, he wants to get better. He has that perfect blend of speed, power, and I think desire to be the kind of player that ultimately he will become. And it's scary to think how well he's doing this already as far as his career is concerned.
Yeah, KG, this goes back to me, and it's great you brought this up, but this goes back to me to rookie minicamp when they had him doing a lot of different things. They were throwing stuff at him. And then you got the veteran, the OTAs and the mini camps, and they were still throwing things at him. And then they started to experiment with him a little bit more about in training camp. Oh, hey, go rush the passer at one-on-one. Oh, come back and play coverage in the 7-on-7 drills. They threw so much at him initially, and you never saw him short circuit is what I'm trying to say. You never saw him just to completely bust. Now, there's been some plays and stuff where he looked like he was a little bit maybe confused on what was going on. But for the most part, it wasn't like one of those things where it was like down after down after down, he was making mistakes. They kept loading the wagon on this kid, and he kept pulling the load. And I think that's one of the most admirable things you could say about this kid. And you brought it up because it started early. I mean, it was going all the way back to George Edwards and those guys coaching him in the rookie minicamp right after the draft. They were just putting him in. They were doing, a lot of things with him, and he never one time looked like that he was out of sorts. And so credit to the kid for being a football intelligent kid.
The Cowboys held the Washington football team to 3 of 14 on third down, made life difficult for Taylor Heineke and his football team. Although, Bryan, the Cowboys did not finish the way that they wanted to. We're up 24-0 at the end of the first half, only scoring a total of 3 points in the second half. It felt like this Cowboys team was going to run away with it in the second half based on what their defense was doing, because it felt like the defense was like, okay, all right, offense, we're helping you out here. We're doing some things to get you guys opportunities here. And the offense just never really clicked, especially in the second half either. Let's kind of dive into that a little bit. Obviously, Dak Prescott did not have a very good game at all. 22 of 39 for 211 yards, had a touchdown, had 2 interceptions, including one to Cole Holcomb that really got the Washington football team back into the game and really made Cowboys fans sweat it out at the end before ultimately putting it away thanks to Randy Gregory and what he was able to do. And then Dak Prescott getting a 5-yard carry on 3rd and 4 to seal the game on 3rd down there. What's going on with this offense? I know that's a really broad question, that there's a lot that can be unpacked there, but let's just start there, whether it be the quarterback, the run game, the offensive line play, the miscommunication with the wide receivers and pass catchers. What, from your scout's view, is going on with this offense at this point?
You just named everything that needs to be said. I think it starts with the play caller. I think he's struggling right now to find something that he could really, we've talked about the ability to hang the hat on something. he's not a scheme. He's not a scheme OC. He's a play caller. He's a collector of plays. It's a great skill to have, but when things start to go bad, you don't have answers. You don't have anything you can go back to and say, okay, this is what we're going to do to get out of this funk. This is what we're going to do to make sure that we get positive plays. Listen, the football team was down yesterday, defensive ends. Their cornerbacks were playing off. That should have been a rout yesterday. When Toohill, the defensive end, they were losing these guys, they lost more guys to COVID and their corners just aren't very good. That should have been a walk through right there is what that should have been. And it wasn't. Your offense struggled. You struggled to protect Dak. This offensive line right now is not good enough. They're just not. And then late in the game, when you need to seal it off, what happens? You lose Tyron Smith. You lose Lyle Collins to a punch. You're playing with Ty Nsekhe and Terrence Steele, and maybe things aren't great at left guard right now. And oh, by the way, Zach Martin had to take off a couple of plays. This offensive line just isn't good enough right now. They just aren't. The Cowboys, we all thought this was a strength going in the season, and actually there's been times where they have been a liability for this offense. But the play caller's been, I think, pretty poor here of late. The running game, I'm not going to say it's completely the running back's fault because one of the running backs is hurt. One of your better running backs, when he was healthy, he couldn't find any space to begin with himself. So, that all that was going on the first 6-7 games of the season, was like, it's all very, very positive stuff. Right now, they can't run the ball to save their lives. They needed to be able to run the ball at the end of the game. And, if they could have run the ball, Dak Prescott's maybe not put into a situation where he throws a pick six, that they have to throw it there to try and get a first down. But I think that, but too, the Dak himself, and I think there's some things that are very, very interesting. And you had this observation after the game, and I totally see where you're going here about Dak Prescott in that pick six. Him setting his feet. It's basically the same play that they ran with CeeDee Lamb to seal the New England game. You're absolutely right about that. The crossing, maybe it was just a tight end instead of it was off that waggle action. But Dak Prescott in that game, when he hurt his calf, he jumped up to throw the ball. You noticed very astutely that he planted himself to throw the ball, and the ball came out a lot flatter. Now, he didn't see Holcomb at all. He just didn't. But in the game, when Dak is up in the air, he gets a little bit more on the ball over the top of it. He's able to torque his body a little bit better. But, yeah, there's something wrong where he is not a confident player right now. And is he pushing because of the contract? Is he trying to justify things? I think with Dak, and I work with the guys that believe that he still might be hurt, but people tell me he's not hurt, and again, these are guys I worked with for 14 years telling me this. So I trust them. Mm-hmm. But there's something fundamentally in Dak Prescott's brain right now that's not allowing him to play his absolute best football like he was the first 7 weeks of the season.
Because when you watch the player, it feels like instinctively he's not doing the things that when we've watched Prescott throughout his career, things that he's obviously grown as a player and as a passer, obviously. But there are certain instinctual things about Prescott, whether it be running the football, making athletic plays with his arm down the field and being able to do those kinds of things. You're not seeing that from that same player. So I'm not sure if he's, as you mentioned, something mentally going on with respect to reading and seeing and reacting, or if he's protecting the calf injury, trying to make sure that he stays and remains available for his team going forward. Because you're right. When you saw the throw, you saw him roll out. Schultz flashed open. There was a window where if he makes that throw on the run, he hits Schultz and is able to get that completion, but he takes the extra time, gets himself set. Here comes Holcomb flashing across, and next thing you know, the pick six happens. I just wonder if there's something that he's subconsciously trying to do to protect himself, because he knows how important he is in terms of his availability for this team going forward. But
no, I think it was an excellent observation by you. And, if fans had the opportunity to look at the all 22, and Game Pass and stuff, you'll see what KG's talking about. I mean, I thought, and I ran it by some people this morning and they were like, man, that's possible. That's possible. Because, he's in a situation right now, but I'll say this, he's not playing with a burst either. It's almost like he's playing in sand, the way he's running and trying to avoid and all that, he just doesn't look as sure and as quick and want to explode, and maybe he doesn't want to run. I mean, to seal that last first down, he had to run, which was the right thing to do, but he doesn't look like he's making the decisions quick enough, throwing the ball, and then also making the quick enough decision if he has to break and go from the pocket. There were a couple of times again where it's like, you're like, just run, you're screaming at the TV, run. And he just wants nothing to do with that. And he just doesn't look like he's getting any kind of a burst, and again, people over there who work with him every single day are telling me he's 100% healthy. And I don't know what to say other than that. Again, I'm going to probably get in an argument with Gavin Dawson, who, I work with, who believes that he's hurt, and I can only tell you what people who I've known for 14 years are telling me over there. They're saying, no, he's not hurt. But I think it's a mental thing with him. I don't think he's seeing the field particularly well, and his decision-making has suffered because of that.
Before we move to our stars of the game, I want to ask you this, because obviously being a scout and evaluating and understanding players and tendencies and strengths and weaknesses, what can be done to try and help alleviate some of that, either from a play calling perspective, from a mental, what can be done to help a quarterback either regain the confidence or help that quarterback remember what his identity is as a player, or is that more so on the player to rediscover and remember what his identity is and the instinctiveness that he plays with? What can be done to try and help a player in that kind of a situation?
Yeah, you know what, that's as they always say, that's a really great question, because I just don't feel that right now he's a really confident player. And I don't know if it's the lack of confidence in the offensive line or the fact that he goes up to the line of scrimmage and he knows there's a run play called and he looks up and it's going to gain 1 or 2 yards. I think there's a lot going on. This offense is in flux. The play caller's struggling a little bit right now. Your backs are banged up. Your receivers, for the most part, catch the balls, but there's some drops that they have. The tight end seems to be the only most reliable player you have that makes consistent enough plays. So, it's about guys around him making plays. I think if they ran the ball better, KG, I think things would come back to him. I think you're asking him to do, and this is going to sound terrible because he's a $40 million player, but right now, as he's going through all this bad stuff, you're asking him to do more than he probably is capable of doing right now. And you're going to say, oh, well, Bryan, why did they pay him? Well, you paid him because that's what quarterbacks do. They get paid. And I know that's a terrible answer, but they need to help him as a group. The line, the backs, the receivers, they need to get his confidence back. I mean, he is like, we've seen pro golfers, and I know there's probably people out there that don't understand golf and follow golf and all that, but we've seen guys that are, Jordan Spieth is a guy I know very well, professional golfer. Young guy wins, plays well, wins Masters and all that. Then he has a run where he has a year where he doesn't win or he doesn't do it. It's the game looks foreign to him, and he doesn't have the ability to hit the driver like he did, or chip or putt. And sometimes when that goes away, you're done. And some of these guys, I'm hoping, I don't think that Dak is done, but it's one of those things where you worry, like, how do you develop his confidence? It's so sad, the fact that they win a game, but like all the talk is about what's wrong with Dak, and it's not like, hey, what a great win for the Cowboys. Defense looks great. But by the way, what's wrong with Dak? That's where it's come. It's become, it's because it's kind of become Micah Parsons' team. And what's Dak doing? And man, it's that part. It's tough. And I think the play caller needs to figure himself out. I think that Joe Philbin, this offensive line, need to figure some things out. I think these receivers need to be a little bit more consistent catching the football. And the running backs, I don't have a great answer because I don't think they're ever going to be completely healthy, and that's kind of where you're at right now with your offense.
It will be a large talking point this week as the Cowboys get ready to take on the New York Football Giants. Let's get to our stars of the game quickly before we end our program here today. Obviously, a lot of the stars of the game were on defense. When you look at what they did, Micah Parsons with 2 sacks, DeMarcus Lawrence with a sack, Neville Gallimore, Randy Gregory also getting into the act. There's one player in my mind, because those guys were fantastic. We knew what they were doing as far as, Parsons with the forced fumble, Dorrance Armstrong with the touchdown. One guy who I don't think got a lot of credit yesterday, who I thought played a fantastic game, I thought Trayvon Diggs was fantastic. The way that he took Terry McLaurin out of that game, really the only pass catcher that really threatens you. I know Humphreys had a couple of nice plays in the game, but what Trayvon Diggs did against Terry McLaurin, I thought was fantastic. His ability to shut him down. McLaurin wound up leaving later in the game with a concussion. Cam Sims made one heck of a catch, I will say, on Trayvon Diggs for the touchdown. But other than that, I thought Trayvon Diggs was really good in that football game. One of the guys who I think will go underrated and unnoticed because of how dominant the defensive line was with Parsons, Gallimore, Gregory, and Lawrence, and what they were doing and how they affected the game. But I thought he was one for sure that definitely needed some love based on the way he played yesterday against the Washington football team.
I really like what you're saying. The fact that he was able to travel with McLaurin, and McLaurin was not a factor in that game. Gibson wasn't a factor in that game, and Heineke wasn't a factor in the game. If you would have said that none of those guys were going to be good players in this game, you would have said Cowboys win this thing easily. And but I'll tell you what, the player that I really liked, and this is a guy, I've got a couple of them if I can, but I got to give some credit to Leighton Vander Esch because I buried him the other day and said he doesn't need to be on the field anymore. And to be fair to Leighton Vander Esch, he ended up with like 3 tackles, but he seemed like, he knocked the ball down. He was around the ball.
Agreed.
The football team didn't run the ball. And, Parsons was playing end. Parsons was playing linebacker. But the one guy that was playing linebacker the whole time was Leighton Vander Esch. And the football team just never really got the running game going. So I'm going to give him a tip of the cap. I think Jordan Lewis was really, really good yesterday too. People don't know with Jordan Lewis and how difficult it is to play the slot, but for him to come up with the tackles, the way he was able to defend the ball, his punch out right there of Gibson, basically his punch out and cause fumble right there got Gibson on the bench the rest of the game. He took the football team's one of their best offensive players, especially with Terry McLaurin being out. He took one of their best offensive players off the field completely. And so to me, give Jordan Lewis a lot of credit for what he was able to do. 6 tackles around the ball, punch the ball loose, fumble recoveries, stuff like that. Great job by Jordan Lewis playing in that secondary yesterday.
I'm glad you mentioned Lewis because I thought he had one of the turning points of the game. One of the early ones was of course, Randy Gregory and his interception. But Jordan Lewis's play, I think, goes underrated in this game because, Washington had just scored. They got the Cam Sims touchdown on Diggs, got the 2-point conversion. It's 24-8. Deron Payne gets a sack on Dak Prescott. They get off the field, and it started to feel like maybe the Washington football team was about to get back in it. Then here comes Jordan Lewis with the Peanut Tillman punch out and gets the ball out and gets the turnover on Antonio Gibson. That I think really kind of calmed things down because it felt like things were about to go real sideways there for a second. Ironically, they did kind of go sideways a little bit later on, thanks to Dak Prescott trying to allow the Washington football team back in the game. But I thought he played and had a tremendous role in this game. Now the Cowboys at 9-4, 3 games clear of the Washington football team with 4 games left to play. They are now 2-0 on their 3-game road trip. They go to East Rutherford, New Jersey next week to take on the New York Football Giants. Before we get out of here, Bryan, what's the one thing that this week you need to hear or see from the Cowboys, either offensively or defensively, that will give you an idea that maybe something could potentially click going forward? Because I think the ultimate concern I had was you had 10 days to figure out offensively what was going on. and you still couldn't figure out offensively what was going on, and you didn't play well offensively against the Washington football team. What are you looking for this week from the Cowboys to try and give you a better idea and sense of what they will need to be going forward here?
Yeah, I think the message that I'm looking for, KG, is unity. And I say unity because it could be this could be tough because the defense is playing so well and people are praising them, and the offense is playing so poorly that people are all over them. I want to hear defensive players say, hey, listen, Dak, Zeke, the receivers, the line, we're going to get this thing together. We're going to get this together. This doesn't need to be one of those things where it becomes offense and defense, because it very well during the year could have been offense is really good and defense is struggling, and we can't win any games because I think they will figure things out offensively. I'm a little worried about the health of the offensive line right now. And what's going to happen potentially with Lyle Collins? Does the punch mean he might be suspended for a game?
Sure.
That's the thing you need to worry about now. And if that's the case, then what happens with is Tyron Smith going to have to miss a game because of the ankle injury? We'll find that out as we talk here on Monday. But I need to hear a unified front coming out of the Star this week. I don't need to hear the defense is great. Offense is struggling. I need to hear the defensive players start to talk up a little bit about the offensive guys, and maybe the offensive guys say, hey, we're really fortunate our defense these last several weeks have played really, really well to keep us in these football games and allow us to win them.
It may sound cliche, but that's what true teams do. They pick each other up, and they're able to recognize when a guy is struggling, how do I pick my teammate up to be able to get him back to where he needs to be? I think that's a terrific point as this week goes on. You can find Bryan on Twitter at Bryan Broaddus. You can find me on Twitter at Kevin Gray Sports. Be sure to subscribe to 105 Through the Fan here on YouTube. And, of course, check us out on all of our social media platforms at 105 Through the Fan. And, of course, 105throughthefan.com. This has been the Boys Collective, episode number 27. The Cowboys get a 27-20 win over the Washington football team, 9-4 as they get ready for their preparation to take on the New York Football Giants next Sunday. Bryan, as always, appreciate the time. Looking forward to talk to you on Wednesday, and we'll talk to you then. Appreciate it.
Good, KG. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.